Well, good morning, everyone. This is Jamie Silver with Herf Jones. Welcome to the November episode of the Yearbook Podcast. Today, we're going to cover a couple updates and reminders, and then we're going to jump right into a presentation. And by the way, I'm going to mention at the beginning here so you can come back another day. The presentation is an excellent presentation on writing photo captions presented by Mr. Willauer, the yearbook advisor at Waunakee High School. It is about 26 minutes long. I've edited it down. I wanted to mention that here because in the notes below, I will include the time at which that presentation begins. So you can come back to this episode when you have time to watch that and share that with your students, your club, whatever you'd like to do. It's a really good presentation on writing photo captions that I'd like to share. So first, as you may know, many of you know me as a photographer at heart. I wanted to share a couple examples here today to kick things off. So this time of year, especially the fall colors, I often do a couple basic photo shoots for friends and family. And this past week or two, I've done two of them. One is just my family photo with my wife and daughter that we try to do every year to watch her grow. Our daughter's 4 years old. And then my niece, who just turned 18, and I did some senior photos for her. So I'd like to jump through those. One thing you'll notice about my style I want to share is I prefer, when possible, to use natural lighting, meaning I don't like to use flash. There is a time and place for that, but generally speaking, if I can, I enjoy shooting with natural lighting, shadows, and soft light and all that. So the photos I'm sharing with you here today are all shot outside. We found a nice backdrop with this beautiful brick wall and some stairs and all that. So I'm going to flip through these, and I share these with you to share, again, my passion for photography. And if you have any questions about how I achieve some of these images, please let me know. I'd be more than happy. I love talking photography. I'd love to share with you. So these photos are specifically for, again, for my niece, senior photos. And many of you listening, for your seniors, you may be doing this with a local photo studio. But if you're on yearbook staff and you see anything here that you'd like that you might want some pointers on, please let me know. Example here, I love narrow depth of field. So as you look at the photos here, you'll see that I focused on her face and linear. Right here, the wall is in focus and everything in the foreground and the background gets blurry really quickly. The way I achieve that is a telephoto lens and a wide open aperture to give that narrow depth of field. Sometimes it's referred to as bokeh in the background, the blurry look. So I love shooting like that. If you don't have a lens that can do this, you don't need it. You can also do this in post-production, whether that be Photoshop or one app, for those of you who like apps on your iPad or tablet or phone, that I've been really loving, and it's free, by the way, is the Adobe Fix app. And I used that on these photos to give the little vignette, right? The little black corner and gradation here. The color, you'll see some of these I've played with color a little bit. Cropping, I always love using the rule of thirds. So I placed her right at that crosshairs, rule of thirds in this photo. And I try to do that most of the photos where I'm using the rule of thirds. Again, black and white. I think it's a nice change once in a while. Again, this time of year, beautiful colors outside. I did boost the colors a little bit in Photoshop Fix to give it more of a vibrant, colorful background. Again, different angles. These are pictures of my daughter and my wife. These are our annual family photo. She's turning 4 this month, so these are photos of her. We go to our local park and we do a family picture of her, and then I just turn her loose and we just tell her to have fun in the leaves. And I try to get some action shots. As far as technique here, same lens, really fast shutter speed to make sure we freeze action. In this case, the leaves flying in the air. I like not only natural light, but natural poses. I like to not disrupt what's happening real quick, too much, and let them be natural. So this picture is my daughter looking up at my wife. And then a little bit more pose picture, black and white and color versions of it. Again, great example of narrow depth of field, really blurry background. I love that because it really brings your eye right to the main focus of the picture with fewer distractions. Last one there with my wife and daughter playing. So again, if you have any questions on photography, it's a passion of mine. I'd love to share with you. Feel free to let me know. We can do a chat on the phone. I can come into school and we can talk photography if you're interested in that area. Okay, next up, we're going to jump right into the reminders and updates. So if you've been listening to the podcast in the last couple months, you've heard me talking about this parent email campaign. I just want to mention again, and every month I'm just sharing an update on the results. And the parent email campaign, in short, is an email that's sent out by us for you. And I'm going to show you a sample of that here, sorry, while we talk. This is an example of it, what it looks like. And we send this out to any parents who have not purchased your book at that time. When they purchase it, they're taken off the list. This is an example of the email that went out for Hampshire High School. And with their permission, you've heard on the previous podcast, I've been kind of tracking the results and sharing them here as just one test, one case study, if you will, to show you how well this is working. Now, I've seen this been used by a lot of schools this year, a lot more than last year, and varying results, but the one thing in common is it's increasing yearbook sales for everybody. Or it's just making sales earlier, but either way, it's helping their sales. And it makes it easier for the parents because they can click on this button down here and purchase their book whenever they want, 24/7 on our website, use their credit card. They can also call us. We have bilingual operators during the workday that can take orders over the phone. And for those who still prefer to use a check, they can also mail us a check. So this example, again, just follow up for the month of October that just happened. Let's see, they had, for the month of October, Hampshire High School had 165 books sold online. Now, since this email went out on October 26th, out of that 165, 41 people clicked on this button right here and clicked to purchase their book online. So this one email generated a lot more sales, 41 more sales in really about a week's time. They tend to happen the day of the email going out, or they trickle in through the weekend or whatnot. So again, they've had 165 purchases for the month of October. As a reference point to show you how well this has worked for Hampshire High School, last year this time, for the month of October, they had 65 sales. So they quite literally have increased by 100 books. So it's working really well. Again, varied results at various schools, but the one thing in common is it is working at all schools, increasing their book sales and making it easier for parents to buy the book whenever they want. So free program, no cost to you, the school, the parent. If you have any questions about utilizing this to support your in-school sales, please let me know. The one thing I want to point out here is the most common question I get is, what is this date, right? We're not ending our sales on Halloween, but I did want to point this out because it's a common question. This is not the date in which your yearbook sales close. It is simply a call to action, if you will, right? So the idea here is when the parents get this email, they click on it because there's a time limit. Not that we're not going to take more sales. We're not going to send an email next month to those who hadn't, but it's a way of getting them to take action. And the fact is it works. So I just wanted you to know, as the yearbook staff and advisor, don't worry about this affecting your online sales. They're not really closing November 1st here, but it's just to get them to take action. Okay, so that's an example from Hampshire High School. Another reminder, moving on, I want to share with you is JEA coming up. It is coming up in about 2 weeks now. It's in Dallas, November 16th to the 19th. Personally, I'm not able to attend this year. I wish I could. If you are able to go, please let me know. Please stop by our booth. Let them know that I sent you. We have a lot of fun activities at the booth, including a break with a pro. If you'd like to bring last year's yearbook for critiquing and get some feedback on, please let me know. That is by appointment, and I can schedule that for you. So do let me know if you're interested. Also, for the advisors listening, couple invitations for you. Herff Jones does sponsor the luncheon at the event. We also have an advisor reception off-site on Saturday, November 18th. It's a great way to socialize, meet some other teachers from all over the United States, and network and just have a good time. So if you're interested, please let me know. I will send this to you. It is by invitation only. I'd love for you to be my guest. Again, I can't be there this year in person, but I'd love for you to be my guest if you're able to attend. Moving on to the next update before we get to the fun presentation here today is the Varsity Spirit Awards. We've been doing this a few years now, and this website just went live. I'll include a link here in the notes below for the 2018 categories. One thing I want to draw your attention to are the deadlines. They're not here yet. I just want to give you a heads up. Starting this month, actually on the 27th, the American Spirit Leader Awards does open early on November 27th and closes in December. The rest of the categories below, they open on January 10th. So I'll remind you as the time gets closer, but I just want to give you a heads up. And if you take a look through this website here, you'll see the various categories, and there's a ton of them. Of course, for all of us listening here, I would just want to point out the yearbook one. There is a yearbook, Most Spirited Yearbook Award. Now, with these awards, I did want to share with you that there is a $100,000 total prize money that will be awarded in these various categories to your school. So I encourage you, when this goes live, again, this one starts for the bulk of them in January, but I just want to mention there's a lot of prize money to be awarded to schools. So please feel free to check the link, and I'll remind you as the time gets closer. With that said, I hope everything is progressing well for you at school with eDesign and getting all your pictures in and building your pages. If you have any questions, very topic specific, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you. As I said earlier, with the photography aspect, that's sort of my passion. I love sharing that with schools. But really, any topics you might need some resources on or support or questions, just let me know. I'd love to come visit or talk on the phone or do a virtual meeting, whatever works best for us to answer your questions. I do have a lot of pre-recorded, very short little videos on very specific topics, typically 2 minutes or so. So, if you need a refresher, for example, on how to tag photos or how to organize them or crop them or how to use our layouts and your own layouts, let me know. I'll be happy to shoot you a quick little video that you can just click and watch whenever it's convenient for you that answers those specific questions. So just let me know. Next up, for this second half of the podcast here, as I mentioned in the beginning, I do have an awesome presentation to share with you. The subject of this one is a formula for writing photo captions. Again, it's about 26 minutes in length, and if you're coming back to the podcast, it starts here. The idea here was I knew for this year, I attended KEMPA, the local KEMPA Student Press Day recently, and I attended with some of my coworkers who presented a few topics and a couple teachers, and I approached them and asked if I could record their sessions to share with all of you here on the podcast. So I have one of them edited and ready to share with you today, and that one is Mr. Willauer from Waunakee High School on the photo captions. The ones that are coming soon, I just need to finish editing them, the next one will be alternative story forms, and that's presented by Beth Marshall from Richmond-Burton High School. Next would be modular design, presented by two of my coworkers, Maureen and Melissa Olofsson. Then I have one on Candid and student life photography, really fun presentation done by Karl at VIP. Last but not least, my colleague Joelle Sexton with Herf Jones did an awesome presentation on editorial leadership. So I have recordings of those with their presentation kind of embedded so you can see the PowerPoints they used. And that will be coming between now and probably throughout the month, and I'll send you an email before the next episode. So watch out for that if you're interested. But for here today, I'm going to jump over to Mr. Willauer's. I hope you enjoy it. He has some really good pointers. He walks you through the process. He has some points where he pauses in the session. Again, I recorded this live where students in the room practiced. Feel free to hit pause on this podcast if you want to follow along and need some time to follow through on the exercise that he's presenting. For time purposes, I condensed it a little bit, and I'll do those on the ones coming up too. But enjoy. Have a wonderful week. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to talk with you soon. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Willauer. I am the yearbook advisor at Waunakee High School. If you're from Dane County, kind of the central part of the state, we are just north of Madison, Wisconsin. I've been advising for 17 years now. We've had it as a class for 16. We've had staffs as high as 75, staffs as low as 6 students. We do 242 pages full color. That's what we're doing. No, 260 this year, I think, is what we're doing. We've been as high as 272, depending on what we're covering and those sorts of things. So we have a pretty large book. We are a class, so we try and do the best we can on every single page. The first thing I want you to realize, if you are part of your editorial staff for your publication, keep this in mind. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You can pick and choose small things to go ahead and affect change over the course of your time working on your publication. You're not going to get it all done in one night. You're not going to get it all done in 1 year, or even maybe the course of while you are at the school, but at least you're moving in the right direction. So today we're going to talk about captions. Captions are basically the little stories in your yearbook, on your spread, in your newspaper that get read the most. I tell my staff, do not be delusional. Most people, when we're talking about yearbooks, so I apologize to the newspaper people because I'm yearbook related, most people don't read our yearbook for the articles. Your generation right now, students right now, are used to getting their information in short little chunks. In our yearbooks, the short little chunks that are the vehicle to get information out are the captions. So captions are the little stories that get read the most. I'm going to go ahead and give you a formula that you can use back at your publication that you can strive for that'll help you turn your captions into miniature stories. When we do this on my staff, our goal is to hook the reader with a caption. First of all, we try and hook them with a picture, then we try to get them to read the caption, and hopefully they stick long enough to actually read the article that we went ahead and spent time on. So, captions. You probably have heard the phrase, picture's worth 1,000 words. That's true, but a picture can't give you everything. You need to have captions on your page to help the reader fill in the blanks when you are trying to get information to them. A yearbook photo without a caption is like watching a movie without sound. Yeah, you can watch a movie with the sound muted, but you're not going to get all the details. It's the same thing with a yearbook photo or a newspaper photo. You can have a person look at those photos on the wall, but if you don't have the background information, all you see is a nice picture. Second one from the left, all you see is a row of cars. That's all you see. Without that caption, you don't get the background story. Captions are the most read copy in the yearbook. It's like your article. Captions should be well-researched, interesting, and informative. We strive for 3 sentences, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and show you, all right? At a minimum, at the very, 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 very minimum, your caption should identify the people clearly pictured in the photo. We go ahead and give them a title, first name, last name. We are from a smaller school, and last year we had 3 sets of this happen in the senior class. We had students with the same name. So not only do we do like senior John Smith, we'll also go ahead and throw in a middle initial just to kind of keep them separate. So at the very minimum, you need to go ahead and identify the person in the photo. Each staff is going to have their own specific guidelines on how they do that, but we always throw an identifier in there, which would be senior, junior, freshman, sophomore, superintendent, math teacher, grade level principal, whatever it might be, and then their first and last name. We also have some other rules when we're identifying people in photos. So for example, if we count to the number 6 in terms of people we can see clearly, if it's less than 6, we try to identify everybody, all right? If we have more than 6 people in a group, we identify the group or some other general way to identify that photo, and then we move on. Obviously, this includes team, club, and organization photos. That's a whole different beast, which if we have time to, we can talk about that in a little bit. Our captions use a formula. We use 3 sentences. The reason we do that is because if we follow this formula, it guarantees our captions are going to be interesting. It guarantees that if students read the captions on the page, they're going to get some basic information about that spread. It's a reader service. We want people to actually enjoy our book. We put that picture on a page for a reason. We typically get 7 to 10 photos on a page. We want those photos to be understood for what they really are, all right? It's like reading a miniature story. You all are used to short chunks of information. I mean, Twitter is what, 140 characters? Some people might get boosted up, which there's a big outroar. I get that. We get short bursts, all right? And we want to go ahead and use our captions like this short burst of information. So, first part of the caption formula. Like I said, if you want to go ahead and kind of jot these down, if you want to take screen snaps, that's fine. Otherwise, I can email it to you. You're going to be going through this in about 5 minutes. First part of a basic caption formula is this first sentence, which is present tense. We want to accurately describe who is doing what in the photograph. It could include the when, the where, if you know it. You should always try to start this sentence with a word that gives a description instead of a person's name. If you start every caption with a person's name, it becomes boring. Boring doesn't get read. All right? So we want to go ahead and start with a nice, strong first sentence. Present tense describes who is doing what. If you've got the space, the time, the creativity, include the when and the where. Try to avoid starting it with a person's name. Part 2, past tense. This is where the caption really kind of does its job. We want to add more information to that photograph that the viewer can't get just from looking at the picture. All right? Add in other related events. Add in some background. Add in what happened before that picture was snapped in time. All right? We want to go ahead and explain what's going on with these photographs. You can look at them and get them at face value, or we can give the reader a little deeper story. Part 3 is the hardest one. Add a quote. This is the one where my students struggle the most. Is adding a quote from either the person who is in the picture or a person related to the action of the photo. My students always get stuck on identifying the student that's in the photo. Well, I know you guys are busy. It's hard to find you guys sometimes. My students get stuck there. You don't have to always interview or get a quote from the person that's the subject of the photo. Get a quote from their parents, their coach, their advisor, a teammate, a manager, a principal. Somebody else who knows that person or knows what's going on can be a viable source for a quote. It is never okay to start a quote with "in this picture," all right? Quotes are difficult. They're the ones that my students were still struggling with. In fact, if you were to ask me where this kind of breaks down on my personal staff, we strive to have 3-sentence captions for all of our pictures. This is the one that typically gets left off, all right, because it's the most difficult. It's the most uncomfortable. If you are a person that, when you're with your group of friends and you're the one always trying to avoid ordering the pizza or placing the phone call, this might be something that's really uncomfortable for you, but you got to practice at it, all right? So here's how this works. Here's an example. Full disclosure, that's not my photo, but we went ahead and wrote a caption for it. So remember, sentence number 1, present tense, kind of telling the who, the what, maybe the where and when. So, munching on a strawberry lollipop at the KEMPA Journalism Convention in October, yearbook editor Susie Cook waits for an autograph from professional journalist Nick Clooney, father of actor George. Present tense, explaining what's going on in the photograph. If we took that caption away, all you would see is a girl with a sucker in her mouth waiting in line. That sentence 1 already gave you information that you didn't know from that photograph, or gave you information you wouldn't be able to see or to understand or know just by looking at it. Sentence 2, Cook and 12 other staffers attended the 4-day convention where their yearbook, The Blaze, won first place in the yearbook division. Once again, background information. There's no way that you would have ever gotten that chunk of information just by looking at that. Sentence 3. Nick Clooney, like so amazing, Cook said. He talked about getting into journalism as a kid before he won all those awards, and I was like so freaked out by the whole thing. Quote from this person right here. That's the nugget. That's what you're going for. That's what you really want to strive to get, is that third sentence. It makes it personal. It adds emotion and background to that caption or to that picture again. All right? So looking at that photo, here's the whole caption. And it looks like a lot because it's big on my screen. In reality, that's going to take up about an inch of space, top to bottom, on a yearbook page. Munching on a strawberry lollipop at the, I changed it up again, Phoenix National Journalism Convention in April. Newspaper editor Susie Cook waits for an autograph from professional journalist Nick Clooney, father of actor George. Cook and 12 other staffers attended the 4-day convention where their newspaper, The Call, won Best of Show 16-page division. Nick Clooney, like so amazing, Cook said. He talked about getting into journalism as a kid before he won all those awards, and I was like so freaked out by the whole thing. If we didn't have that caption, all you would see is a girl with a sucker in her mouth standing in line. Now you've got a miniature story. If you've got 7 to 10 photos on your page and you challenge yourself to do 3 sentences for each photo, you now have 7 to 10 miniature stories that give the reader, someone in your school, a parent of a student in your school, someone in your community, more information that they would have had if they had simply seen that photograph. All right? If we had simply seen her name, Susie Cook, we wouldn't have known who she is, what she was doing, or where she was. So if you can challenge yourself to implement this 3-sentence formula, you're going to go ahead and put 7 to 10 miniature stories on each page. All right? Sounds difficult at first. The first year we tried doing this, we didn't do very well. My kids pushed back. Second year, we tried a little harder. More and more kids bought into it. The third year, we actually had students start telling us, hey, this yearbook's really cool. We like this. 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, then we started focusing on every photo needs 3 sentences. The challenge then became, all right, getting it all laid out, space on the page, but those are little problems. We can fix that with font size. We can fix that by changing the space between the lines of text. It's a good problem to have when you write too much. All right? So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a second. We're going to go ahead and we're going to practice this. So, and this is what I do with my students. I usually give them 4 or 5 photos. We're going to do 2, maybe 3 in here. We're going to have you practice writing these sentences right now. So take out a sheet of paper. You can go ahead and jot notes down on. I randomly select my victims, so just be aware. If you don't have a piece of paper, take out a personal device. If you don't have either of those, talk to your neighbor, see if you can borrow one, or hopefully your memory is really good because everybody is eligible to answer these. All right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to write a sentence 1. Remember, it's present tense. We want to include some pretty cool verbs. Try and include as many of the 4 W's of the photo without simply telling the obvious. If you can see it in that photograph, it doesn't bother to restate it. Here's our info. The who is sophomore Haley Buck and her father Ray. The what is after the first race of the year. Judging by the uniform, I'm going to go with cross country, although it could be track. Where? The Riverwood Golf Club finish line, Saturday, October 11th. Now, here's where I need to go ahead and put a little professional disclaimer. You don't know this person, you don't know this background, you don't know this story. So for this example, for this practice, we are going to make stuff up. In real life, you don't ever do that as a journalist. You never want to make up information. In fact, on my staff, that's instant dismissal with an F for the year. For this practice, though, we're going to go ahead and make things up. So I'm going to go ahead. It's 10:42. At 10:45, I'm going to choose my first victim, and they're going to tell me their first sentence. Let's see what you guys can do. Remember, you're writing a present tense sentence. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time is up. All right, first things first. I always like to give people a chance to go ahead and volunteer. Do I have any volunteers that are brave enough to read their first sentence? You do? You want to? What's your name?
Alex.
Alex, give it a shot.
Exhausted after the first race of the year at Riverwood Golf Club, sophomore Haley Buck is held up by her father, Ray, while she waits for a medal.
All right, good job. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. I appreciate that. Not hard. Was it hard? Not hard at all. All right. So, moving on. We're going to add to it. Sentence 2. Past tense sentence that offers background, context, and or significance to the photo. Remember, we want to add information to that you can't get from that photograph, all right? Something different than what we just talked about in sentence 1, all right? Write up your sentence. Once again, we don't ever do this in real life, but you're allowed to go ahead and make up any facts you need. Let's go ahead. You've got 3 minutes. Begin. All right, pencils down. Anybody want to volunteer a second sentence? Do you?
Yeah.
Go for it. What's your name?
I'm Indy.
Where are you from, Indy?
I'm Parkview.
Okay. Go ahead, give it a shot.
The Riverwood Golf Race was the first race of the year, and Haley just managed to finish before her foot got caught in a hole and she twisted her ankle.
Every year, I guarantee it, about 80% of you is either going to be blew out her knee or sprained an ankle. Every year. I like that. Good job. All right. Give her a round of applause. Good job. All right. Next up, a quote that reveals from or about somebody in the photograph. It should reveal the personality of the person and the moment. In my classroom, when I do this, I have someone role play with the person next to them to go ahead and get a quote from either Haley's point of view or her father Ray's point of view. We're not going to do that right now, but I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Go ahead and add a quote, not a fact, a quote from Haley or Ray. 3 minutes, go. All right, pencils down. So, do I have a volunteer? Go for it. What's your name?
Harry.
Harry, where are you from?
Berlin.
Berlin. All right, let's hear it.
I knew it was going to be hot, so I made sure I was hydrated. I wish I would have braced my ankle. Stepped in the hole now. I might miss the upcoming Low Pump concert.
Low pump. I'm not confused. But all right, round of applause. All right, so as you can see, in 9 minutes total time, we went through and with a group of students, maybe your staff, maybe a group of incoming people to your staff, we went through and we wrote one caption for one photo. If you do the math on that, 10 photos on a page, average about what's on a yearbook page, 9 minutes of photo, and you're going to get better over time. That's an hour and a half total time worked on captions. All right? You got an hour and a half, and I'm not sure what your deadline rotation is. In my classroom, they've got about 13 days between spreads. An hour and a half over the course of 13 days isn't a lot of time to go ahead and get people to go ahead and read your copy in your yearbook. Now, so this is the first one we do as a group. And what we then do to kind of move on is we go ahead and I give them a couple samples. So what we're going to do, let's see. Let's do this one. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go ahead and write a full caption for the photo that's on the screen. And like I said, in my class, we do them all. But in this one, we're going to do this one. So this is senior Kyle Meffert and Dean Helt. Before the final AP Calc test during the second semester, both need a passing grade to graduate. All right? So both people need a passing grade to graduate. We've got 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and get a 3-sentence caption. Once again, only in this instance only, you're allowed to make stuff up. Go ahead. Have at it. All right, time's up. Pencils down, please. I'm going to have a little fun. Who has homecoming today at their school? Stand up. Anybody? Oh, you. What's your name? Seth. Seth? You scrouched down first. Where are you from? Parkview. Parkview? You feel comfortable giving it a shot?
Not really.
Go for it.
Seniors Kyle, Meffert, and Dean help each other review for the AP Calculus test. Both said that they need to pass this test in order to make it to their college.
All right. Let's give him a round of applause. Some courage. All right. Anybody want to volunteer to give theirs? You do? Have at it. Where are you from? What's your name?
My name's Holly and I'm from Belleville.
Holly from Belleville. I know where Belleville is. It's on my way down to New Glarus.
Alright, cramming for the final AP Calculus test. Seniors Kyle and Meffert and Dean help prepare to get a passing grade. Both Kyle and Dean needed the passing grade in order to graduate with the class. They'll help scrape by with a 62% by testing 42. Man, I wish I would have studied sooner, said Meffert. Now I can't believe it.
Good job. Round of applause, guys. All right. So here's what we do from this point on. We go ahead and we practice this a couple more times. Like I said, I've got more photos. What I recommend doing is if you're going to take this exercise back to your staff, grab some photos from previous years where maybe you didn't have a caption that you thought was good enough for that photo. Practice with people you may know. It's a little bit easier. You'll get there. In fact, we just had a bunch of good captions written in the span of about 25 minutes, all right? If you keep practicing at it, you're going to go ahead and get better. Some tips for captions. Captions should contain all parts of the 3-part formula. We talked about that. Present tense sentence, past tense sentence, quote. Unless there's a valid reason for changing the standard format that the EIC, Editor-in-Chief, has agreed to. On our policy, these are all rules of thumb, not hard rules. There are or may be an instance where we go ahead and break away from this. I give you, it's not very often, but my Editor-in-Chief has the final say. All right, next up. The format is somewhat flexible. I gave you a certain 1, 2, 3. We also allow students to go ahead and mix up the order if it makes sense. That adds variety to your captions. Remember, if it gets boring, it's not going to get read. All right? No sentence should begin with a, and, or the. All right? That's one of the rules that we have. All right? The hard part once we start getting into this is varying the sentence openings. You're going to go ahead and realize that you might start the sentence with the same opening chunk of words for every caption. Challenge yourself to change that. And like I said, the 1, 2, and 3 may be interchanged. We've got 11:03. I've got a couple more slides. Group caption tips. I talked about normal captions. Here are some things we do for our group captions. We try to organize in rows when possible. All right. One thing that we do is we bring a notebook or a sheet of paper and we actually pass them down the rows because we shoot all of our own club and org photographs for our groups. We have a school photographer, contracted photographer that does the sports ones, but we pass a notebook down the row when we get them. We have kids just sign their first and last name. That's something real easy to get first and last names. It somewhat puts them in order, and it helps you with spelling and identification. When we label students, label from left to right, front row, second row, third row, fourth row, etc. The final row is always called the back row. Label everyone. In my yearbook, I was labeled as question marks, Jeff, which is my first name, some weird spelling of my last name more times than I can count, and I was a couple X's one time. We don't want to do that to people, all right? We label everyone. When we have an issue, we actually print out that group photo on a sheet of paper, circle the people we don't have identification for, and we walk around the school. We go to the team, we go to the captain, we go to the office, we go to the library, study hall. We're in a smaller school. We only got 1,300 students. Some of you may be in bigger schools. Try to identify everybody. Last but not least, and I know this is kind of a student thing, you like to put placeholders in. Some people put placeholders in as just like comma, space, comma, thinking that you're going to remember that when your stuff comes back on proof or later on down the road in an edit. I tell my students, do a line of X's with an underline, another line of X's, make it the brightest color that you can see. We use eDesign, so we actually highlight it and turn it bright pink. That way when we print out our proofs, we see bright pink X's and like, oops, we can't have that showing in our yearbook, all right? Here's an example, all right? That's our basketball team. We also go through, and for us, for the managers, we also put MGR for manager because we want to go ahead and include those people too. Sometimes those people work harder than the athletes. We also go through and we identify coaches, and we do it first and last name. We don't just put Coach Johnson, all right? We put first and last name. That is the last slide that I have. It's 11:05. I want to give you guys some time for questions if you have any. I want to give you a chance to go ahead and fill out the kind of the survey that you guys are supposed to fill out for each session. Here is my email address. If you want to go ahead and email me, I will send you a copy of this, no questions asked. Any questions? You guys have any questions for me? Question, right here. Where are you from? What's your name?
Christina.
Christina? Where are you from?
I live in Beloit, but I'm from Georgia.
Okay, you live in Beloit. All right, what's up?
The things that we fill out, do we give them to you?
I have an envelope right here. I promise I won't look at them. All right, so you can actually put them face down on there. I'll slide them right in there. Any other questions about captions? No? I can't believe I did that. Good question.
What's your opinion on like lead-ins for captions?
Lead-ins for captions, this is going to be very middle of the road. I like to leave that up to the staffs. What does your staff feel?
I mean, last we try to keep it like a standard, and we try to either say we're going to do all lead-ins or not lead-ins, but last year we kind of ended up.
I think staying with one style, either all or none, but you could have your lead-in be your first sentence. I mean, that's something that most people do. Like for us this year, we're looking at highlighting the first sentence and bolding it with a little different color. Something you can do. Any other questions? Question? Yeah, you can. On our staff, if we want to do that, we get the okay from the editor-in-chief. In our case this year, it's Megan. If Megan gives her blessing. My job is basically to make sure my students are responsible journalists, get it done on time, and get it done on budget. I have a 4-year editor-in-chief. She's been on staff 4 years. She knows the in and out. It's my student's book. If she says okay, I'm going to let her run with it. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you for... question in the back.
How long should each sentence be?
Pardon?
How long should each sentence be?
Each session be? Sentence. That's a great question. I didn't talk about this. We try and wordsmith our captions. We'll write them out the first time, and then we try and reduce them. Every word you put on your page should have meaning, all right? Should give meaning to that sentence. So if you can go back and wordsmith and make it smaller, great. Typically, we try and keep our captions to less than 60 words. Same thing with like paragraphs or body copy, but sometimes we can't, all right? Thank you guys for coming. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Remember, turn in your survey forms up here. Just be careful of Jamie's camera back here. Don't knock it over. You guys can go ahead and head out to lunch.